Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
As always, guys, check in daily. We will do our best to keep you updated on the chaos and craziness in the world over on Evolutionary Arts. We'll go deep diving, and we'll also cover the Earth changes and things like Atlantis, Tartaria. Really been dying to get back to that. And as you can see here, the abduction phenomenon, shocking truths of our the hidden history of how our medical system came into being. Oh boy. And all the spiritual stuff, we're going to be really focusing on Heart's OMMM the most. And so we had one yesterday that was an important message from the guides on the major ascension wave coming in. This is what we see from the Jerusalem Post. New study may explain the bright light and familiar faces in near-death experiences. Scientists observe that parts of the brain in charge of internal visual experience have increased activity at the moment of cardiac arrest. Sudden increase in brain activity at the moment of cardiac arrest may be what causes people to see a bright white light while experiencing near-death experiences, according to a new study published on Monday. The study, which was published in the peer-reviewed Proceedings of the National Academy of Science journal, examined the brain activity of 4 dying patients. Between 10 and 20% of people who survive near-death experiences tend to describe the moment as a bright light or say they saw dead loved ones among other visual experiences. Many people look on this skeptically, but the new study may have found scientific explanation for this phenomenon. What did the researchers see in dying people's brains? Using EEG, the researchers observed that cardiac arrest or acute asphyxia led to high levels of gamma activities in the brain amongst both humans and animals. Gamma power in the brain is an indicator of consciousness, tends to be associated with intense focus, problem solving, and other brain activity that requires mind power. Specifically, the activated areas of the brain that scientists observed among dying patients are similar to the areas of the brain that handle internal visual activity like dreaming. This could explain the bright light or faces of loved ones when the patients are not seeing these images actually materialize in front of them. They are essentially dreaming them as they pass away. 2 of the 4 patients observed in the study exhibited the increase in brain activity, while the other 2 did not. Flip a coin! When you really look into their science, it's just completely laughable. It truly, truly is. Here again, it's the chicken or the egg in some ways, but we know, and you can know through direct experience that consciousness is not something that only arises from the chemical interaction of a physical brain.
No, not at all. The information that we receive comes from outside of us. So think about that for a moment. Think about it's not what we conjure from the inside of our mind. We are receivers. We are antennas. You can try to explain away when we are working on people. How is it that we are able to channel what they are going through? How is it we are able to reach into that energy body and make adjustments so that someone might find healing? How is it that when I sit and I talk to someone about a loved one dearly departed who had recently passed, how is it I tap into their energy field and I can explain the things that they have going on right now and also things that they had going on in their lives? So all of this information comes from the outside of me, but science is so desperate. I mean, they're getting really desperate to explain it away and say, oh, it's just something, it's just chemicals reacting inside your brain, when it's clearly known now that it has nothing to do with chemical reactions. We are electric. We're electric beings. When they talk about raising your vibration, this has everything to do with electric activity in the body and how information is passed back and forth in that manner, not chemically. So, I mean, they're going to keep doing their best.
Yeah, and the takeaway, there's numerous takeaways. But you can take away from what they're doing is the fact that they want to instill fear in death. And really, death is just simply opening up a door and walking through it. You step out of one room, you enter another room. It's just that simple. That is what it is. And we leave the body often. And when we are sleeping and we're in the dream state, the consciousness is not bound by the body. It's still tied to the body, as the occult tradition will say, by a silver cord. And yeah, we are tied to the body still, but we can rise above and beyond the body, and countless people have in deep meditation, and also with near-death experiences, traumatic events as well. You know, it's interesting how they want to put so much focus on the brain, but the reality is the ENS, the enteric nervous system, is truly the first quote-unquote brain, as that is what develops first, is literally the guiding force that resides in the gut. And so often you hear, go with your gut feeling. There's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm. The mind and the gut are very much tied together. You know, and I also look at the heart. I mean, all of these organs are so very important for our ability to receive information. And science is going to tell you, no, it's just some chemicals in the brain, and leave it at that simple. It's like they're in preschool, you know, as opposed to where we're headed.
Well, again, it's part of their whole mindset that they're selling us. They're selling us that you need to keep that body going. And yet the food that we eat and, you know, our situation on this planet is so unhealthy in comparison to what it's like when we're not under this control system, that it makes it harder for us, you know, to vibrate very, very high frequency and to achieve a lot of spiritual growth. So those are limiting factors, but giving us concepts, philosophies, and ideologies that are also limiting. And because what they want to do is they want to sell us on basically becoming part of the Borg, becoming part of the collective, you know, replacing what breaks down with a mechanical component and keeping the consciousness tied to the body. The etheric template is really, that's the blueprint from the, you know, from spirit, from, again, the descent, because it is a descent in some ways, in frequency from what we might call spirit to matter, but in reality it's all levels. It's all just simply, it's different resonance, it's different frequencies. That's really it in a nutshell. But, you know, who creates the body for the soul to inhabit? Because the soul does create its own body utilizing the material that's given by the parents. It's the soul that is the architect of the body. So, yeah, in some ways, truly, you know, you are your own creator, and that's the thing to really realize. Raymond Moody, so many years ago, gosh, like 45 plus years ago, wrote a book, Life After Life. Science meets spirit in our explorations of the afterlife. Many people have done hypnosis and past life regressions and found, you know, these recollections very, very vivid of different lives. I've encountered it multiple times. I've shared with you when I was working in a clinic, I encountered one lady that I would see about every 3 weeks, and she was not heavy, but, you know, the size of her feet and her ankles would just swell up with edema. And the doctors didn't know why. And I would be able to shrink it through energy work, get the fluid to move out, but it would come back like clockwork. And she did a past life regression and found, and this was after trying everything, with a past life regression, found that she was in a flood, went down into the basement in her past life, stepped into water that was ankle deep, and there was an exposed electrical wire and it killed her. This was what was still haunting her, so to speak. And it was manifesting in her physical body in this life. Many times we'll have what you would call beauty marks, birthmarks and stuff, and that could be an imprint of something that happened in a past life. I've shared with Cindy that I've felt something being run through my left kidney at multiple times, and I've had these dreams and visions of somebody coming up from behind me and basically stabbing me through my left kidney. And again, that is past life related. There's a fear of being out in an open place that I also have when it's really barren and very open. And again, that is past life. And when we understand these type of things, then everything changes. So as much as they want to convince you that, you are just, chemical reactions in the brain, that's all that your consciousness is. And again, that's so they could sell you later on, at some point in time, replacing parts of you with their technology. No, the body is just a vehicle. And the Sanatana Dharma and, the Hindu tradition always speak of this. And not just that, but really when you look to the indigenous people, the shamanic traditions all around the globe from every culture, it's kind of one of the commonalities is reincarnation. And really, truly, we're talking about transmigration of the soul, because the soul is not limited to incarnating just as a human.
No, and one very important thing, if you have a lot of freckles, those are angel kisses, you guys. They're angel kisses. A lot of people do have freckles anyway. That's what I was told, and I love it. I think it's sweet. It's charming, but death does not have to be an ugly thing at all. Granted, our cells are programmed to want to live. So that's why, we are very resistant to death. But we have that extra layer of the system, saying that you just blow out like a candle. And I just can't tell you guys enough. That's just not true. But we are programmed to live. We are supposed to have different experiences, and we are supposed to remain in these bodies, because this is where the spiritual growth happens. This is where the evolution aspect of everything is happening as well. We're in here.
Yes, absolutely. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by wind. So wait a minute, go back to that. Nor burned by fire. No, so that whole concept of burning in hell is an impossibility. It could be something that's programmed into the mind to create the conditions of it. But the reality is, when you get into out of the body and into that 4D, the elements that we are familiar with, the senses are different, and you can't be burned. You can't be burned. You can condition the mind to think that's the case, and the mind can be in anguish, and that is part of what is processed. When we pass this life, there's a period of contemplation and decision making, because again, who makes the decisions on what to do next? You do. Well, the higher self.
Not to get too Debbie Downer, but I do want to bring up, in the Bible there is that saying that, if you do certain things, you're going to burn in the lake of fire. If you look at the lake of fire and you look at the sun and you realize the sun is made up of plasma and our bodies are made up of plasma, and soon it's not a lake of fire. We all come from that one source. So it's just, they're really just trying to bring about fear. So whenever you're going about learning about a new belief system, I would say, just step around that fear. Belief systems have a lot to offer as far as soul growth is concerned, but you don't want to get caught in that corner. You don't want to get caught in the, well, if I do this way, something bad is going to happen. I think that's where the growth stops. And the fear And anxiety is going to be very contractual, and you're not going to be able to extend your soul out further for continued growth. So that's just something that I watch for in my daily journey when I'm learning about different belief systems, as I look for that, and I avoid it, but I do love the little golden nuggets that feed the soul. I cannot get enough of that.
Yes, and a lighted lamp does not need another lamp to illuminate its light. Think about that. A lighted lamp does not need another lamp to illuminate its light. That lamp's inside you. You don't need to study anybody else's philosophy to find your own way. If you so desire, and then take what serves and discard what doesn't, that's perfectly fine and up to each individual. And there are those that will blindly trust and believe out of fear. So to Atman, now the Atman is the soul, the eternal self. That is the part of us that is source, having a unique experience as an individual. So to Atman, which is knowledge itself, needs no other knowledge to know it. So, again, this is where the limiting belief systems are entirely that way on purpose. Adi Shankara, who is one of the perhaps greatest spiritual teachers of all time, made that statement. The reality of the external world is a projection of one's mind. If someone thinks it's unreal, then for that person, this universe certainly becomes unreal. And the philosophy of the Upanishads. Now, the Upanishads are a really good place for people that are very familiar with the Bible to go, because they're done in stories and parables. They're very easy to read. You'll feel almost like you're reading, perhaps you'll feel like you're reading the source material for a lot of the biblical quotes. And so the philosophy of the Upanishads, spiritual instruction focused on inner experience as the path to realization and immortality. Because really, it's that you are immortal, not the body. Of course, the body's just a vehicle. As much as we love that first car we had, that first whatever it is, your first Easter dress, if you're a little girl that was brought up in that tradition, your first suit, your first whatever, it's going to wear out or it's not going to fit at some point in time. And you're going to need a new vehicle. That's simply what the body is. It's just a vehicle. The reality is you're already immortal. You're eternal consciousness. So Brahman is the transcendent, all-pervading, infinite, and everlasting ultimate reality. The Atman is the reality as it is found within ourselves. Our soul is one with the soul of the universe. So the Brahman you could view as the soul of the universe, and the Atman as the individual. This is from Isaiah 43:2. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you. Well, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different ways you could take different quotes of anything, be it biblical, non-biblical. And the reality is outside of the body or in 4D, that's very much the case. Absolutely. So from that one perspective, you could say, yeah, that's simply when we are not in the body. And this gets into Atman and Brahman. And so I'll give you guys the links if you want to go and look in a little bit closer. Again, no human philosophy system is perfect. And this is what the guides have gotten across when Cindy's been totally under and I've been conversing with the guides, who include beings like Lakshmi and Ganesha, and again, which are obviously in the Sanatana Dharma system, but other beings too, like both Marys, and Yeshua and Kuan Yin and the Galactic Federation, White Buffalo Calf Woman. There's something so limiting about our brain that we can't really see it clearly for what it is while we are in the body. Yet everything that we need is already within us. Now, that's part of why it's so important to meditate. When we do a deep meditative practice, we are periodically, literally, getting out of the body in a controlled fashion. And then you start to get glimpses of the real reality, of the real you.
So if I can just, a lot of people get stuck on meditation because they're like, okay, I'm waiting for something to happen. You know, when is this thing going to happen? Oh, my mind is quiet. I'm breathing. And I have to tell you, the magic really happens after meditation and after you've practiced a little bit, because what that does is that settles the energy body. It settles the soul. It makes your environment a little more congruent. So things around you are also going to settle down. So if you have a very chaotic life, this is a very powerful tool if you're determined to quiet a little bit of the chaos around you. And this includes other souls who are running around, you know, causing problems. If you quiet your soul, that's going to become catchy, and you'll notice things in your life will start to go smoother. But it's definitely a concentrated effort. It's got to be something you prioritize, but it's so helpful and it is so good for the soul. And once you start to do that, you also start to realize who you are. What are you here for? You start getting all those answers. You might not always receive them in meditation.
No, absolutely. And you know, it's been a long process. And you know, Cindy, it's interesting because when we first met, she reached out to me because she had followed the videos, and she had me teach her some energy work. And then as time has gone on, she's taught me, I think, a lot more than I've taught her. And this is kind of our relationship, I think, through multiple incarnations too, always teaching the other from a slightly different perspective, which is beautiful. But what I wanted to share is the things that haunted me, really did haunt me, actually did make me feel uncomfortable facing. I've gotten clear vision and understanding due to her shedding light. And sometimes it is when she's in full trance and it's other beings that are coming through. And other times it's when she's in half trance or even just totally awake and just having conversation. Is several different things. Like I had always these dreams that were haunting me of being in my aunt's house, and that was the familial home, and I would feel that there's something in the house. There's something in the house. It's roaming in the house. It's not physical. It's a presence, and it's just floating around through hallways and going in and out of rooms and stuff. And then the realization that I eventually came to, because this used to plague me all the time. I'd wake up and, you know, I remember being a little boy, and my dad, you know, was a big guy, and I'd wait for him to go up to the bathroom because there was one bathroom in a house with like a dozen rooms, and it was on the second floor, and there was 3 floors. It was an old Victorian. And so I'd wait for him, and then, you know, he would stand outside, and, you know, it's one of those things. The house always freaked me out. And it did even as a young adult, and it did until I came to the understanding and the realization that presence I was feeling roaming through the house in a disembodied state was myself. And that was freaky, because then it led me to the understanding that, again, another experience I'm having disembodied. And I did have a disembodied experience when my brother passed. And there was a voice, you know, over my shoulder, as all of a sudden I found myself as a 5-year-old staring at the kitchen wall, you know, because I was in deep contemplation and despair because my brother wasn't going to be there anymore. And hearing the voice say, you know, you're not your body. And, you know, I was outside and above and behind my body looking at my body. So again, you can have these type of things, and I've had glimpses with all this work of different past lives, and so for me, it's a knowing at this point in time. It's a complete knowing. But again, so countless different yogis and monks and people of various backgrounds that have had these meditative spiritual practices understand this completely, because they've gone through the exact same thing.
Right. And it's about making that priority. quieting the soul. But, this is a process. It takes a very, very long time to come to these understandings. But you know what? You don't even have to set out with that being the goal. You can just set out to make your life a little more magical, a little more tolerating, make things just a little bit better if you do just a little bit of this.
Absolutely. So take heart. You do not disappear when the body dies. That is a complete fallacy. Absolutely. No, we are eternal consciousness itself. And this is at the heart of Hinduism and many other traditions. And my studies in Hinduism really began from being pointed in that direction from fundamentalism. Because they were viewing this as the big enemy, the circle of sorts that I was in that was, saying, ultimately, all those gods of Hinduism, they're all demons, and perhaps that's the root of Satan, and look, they even call it Satan Dharma, Santana Dharma, no. Yeah, and then the more I researched into it, the more it all made complete sense, and it was resonating with my soul so well, and the whole time I was trying to, because of friends and just this inner curiosity and being brought up in Christianity, trying one flavor of Christianity after the other and never having it feel at home. I mean, it never felt home to me, even though I met lots of really good people and had a lot of good times, with different groups and all. There was just something that always felt really off about the fundamentalist mindset, and it just never resonated. And yet I could find that what I found in the heart of Hinduism, so to speak, is the exact same with all the quote-unquote pagan traditions across the globe, and you could find it rooted in all the Western esoteric systems, in the Kabbalah, in Hermeticism, in Gnosticism, in the shamanic belief systems, and it resonates, and it's all the same, really, at its root and core, with what I found through the Native American tradition, too. Of course, there are different controller ideologies that get wedged into every system wherever they possibly can, try to distort the reality to benefit themselves. But this is what we can find. Again, you don't need another light when your light is shining. It's there's no need for any other dogma, because it really is just about simply trying to keep us divided. But all this is just the relics of a dark age, which is passing as the lights upon the planet are growing stronger.
Definitely.
As always, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.